Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Be Sustainable podcast from UCM. We're going for a slightly different look and feel this time. We've got Kian Bruney and Jake Wright. They're two of the university's student officers for sustainability. And we've also brought a slight international flair to this. Kian is based in St Andrew Parish in Dominica. He's an architectural technician for EnviroPlus Consulting Inc. And is currently studying BSc Honours in Quantity Surveying. Jake is UK based. He's an apprentice quantity surveyor studying the BSc ONS quantity surveying route. He works for Dadson and Butler, which is a surveying firm based in Amesbury. Yeah, so we've got a bit of an international flavour, a bit of a home flavour as well. So, Kian, Jake, thanks for joining us today. Fantastic for us to talk to some of our students for a change. We normally talk to academics and practitioners, and whilst you are both practitioners, you're also students, and it's great to get your perspective. So thank you for joining us today. One of the key things we wanted to talk about was from your perspective as students, how you got into this and how you see the future of it. So let me ask you the first question, and Jake, I'll start with you if that's okay. How aware were you of the built environment as a career option when you were deciding what you did want to do for a living?
I would say that it was majority from family background. My dad has been in construction from a very young age. I would say that it was more family background than school environment. I don't think it was presented as a good career route or pathway to go down. And the opportunity came up to work on the client side rather than my dad's construction side, which I've taken and been doing for nearly 4 years now. So it's been really insightful.
Okay, great. And so you're carrying on a family tradition in the industry or the sector rather than picking up from anywhere else, which I think is common to an awful lot of the students that we have. Kian, how about you? What switched you onto this as a career and a profession?
Well, I can say I share Jake's sentiments as far as, family members are the ones who introduced me to this arena. I have one uncle and two uncles actually, and one cousin who are active professionals in the construction industry in the neighboring islands of Antigua. So with that, growing up, they would share their experience with me. They would share their knowledge. They would take me onto construction sites with them whenever I went up to, visit on vacation. I would never be bored. So I would learn the tricks of the trade from the professionals themselves. And of course, I was always looking forward to, helping them out. Always look forward to learning. So I believe that really introduced me to the built environment in a positive way, I can say.
And it sounds like for both of you, being introduced to the realities before the theory sort of helped in terms of already knowing what it was actually like, rather than just what book learning would tell you it was like. So it's an interesting perspective. Our podcast and our approach, built environment and sustainability, the two things that we talk about together. So let's take the second one of those two things. Kian, for you, you've talked about the family tradition or family history in the built environment industry. Did sustainability come in through that, or is that something that has come in through other education and other interests?
I believe sustainability has always been something that, growing up, I would hear about and I would see practiced. Of course, be it through, government conferences or corporate meetings or, discussions with contractors and, local planning authorities. It is something that we've always heard, we've always practiced, and, it's always encouraged. I believe that the professionals in my jurisdiction, they all practiced it. So we have like this culture of sustainability. So as a result, it's something that is really embedded in us from a young age going into the built environment.
Yeah, great to hear. And is that sustainability very much from sort of a carbon perspective, or do you see it as sort of broad-based sustainability across all of the development goals and so on?
It is carbon-based. And I believe eventually we get into that question as to why I was so passionate, but it is carbon based simply because the negative effects of carbon in the environment, the greenhouse gases, that directly affects islands like the island I'm living in, Commonwealth of Dominica. As a result, whatever the world as a whole, contributes towards the negative effects of unsustainable practices, we see the direct impacts of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's unpack that other little bit that you sort of you teased us with there. What is it that makes you so passionate about it? Why is sustainability? What made you want to become a student officer for sustainability, and as well as having it in the workplace?
Okay, well, to unpack that, I can say that I have a unique experience with the adverse effects of unsustainable construction practices, and of course, by extension, climate change. Being from the Commonwealth of Dominica, it's a tropical zone. The chain of islands, we are directly in the path of hurricanes and storms that come in through the northeast trade winds off the coast of Africa. So we are the first to get hit, quote unquote, when the storms come through. So personally, I've seen the increase in frequency and in intensity of the storms over the years. Of course, growing up, I've heard of a very bad hurricane that we've had. Well, that was when my parents were like 10, 12 years old. So back in the 1970s or so. It was called Hurricane David, and it was devastating. So I've always heard stories of that. However, back in 2017, I had the unfortunate circumstance, the unfortunate experience to experience one of them for myself. So in September 2017, we were hit with Hurricane Maria. And Hurricane Maria, if my memory serves me right, contributed to about 140% as far as destruction of our GDP, 140% of our GDP.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was pretty bad. And I think approximately 90% of homes were severely damaged, of course, mine including.
Yeah.
And because of that, I know that it is an effect of climate change. And I know climate change stems from unsustainable construction practices. So with that, I believe that is what really kickstarted my interest in sustainability and in trying to make a difference in the world through sustainable practices.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, incredible first-hand evidence, and a real clear understanding of why this is important to you. And as the climate becomes less stable, it will only become more of an issue as we go forward. Jake, let me turn to you. I won't ask you about hurricanes in Wiltshire, but if we can talk about those two questions, what did you hear about sustainability as a kind of an influence on career choices, and also why are you passionate about it particularly?
Well, thanks, Mike. I mean, in terms of personal experience, I've been fortunate to not been physically impacted with the sort of destructions of houses and everything. England, I think, we're subject to storms not as intense as hurricanes, but the results of those storms with flooding, especially sort of across areas of lowland, areas which are affecting wildlife, humans, retail businesses, etc. And that knowledge stemmed from my school experience in terms of learning from geography, I would say, and just the different physical and human aspects. So of rivers exceeding their banks and flooding, or human geography, also learning sort of social inequalities, so bringing all aspects of sustainability, not just environmental, and how that has economic impact to local areas, nationally and internationally. Sort of a sense of responsibility to do what we can locally and globally to reduce our impact as much as possible. And that's really where it stemmed from.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. That responsibility is something that I think we hear a lot about. Is people, feeling, we all feel it. I have a young son, and I always, consider what's the world going to be like when he's my age, a few years from now, and he's older and living in wherever climate change and all the rest of it have taken us in the time. So I think it sits on with all of us to do something about it. Let's turn to the workplace around this. You're both relatively early in your careers within the built environment. Jake, I'll come to you first. What influence does sustainability have in decision making in the day job?
Within the day job, we're in a position, luckily with our business in the high sort of residential sector and commercial sector, that we can implement renewable strategies. They do come at a cost, but over time, we hope that that cost is mitigated by the impacts that we are hopefully trying to avoid. So at the moment, we are collaborating with the architects to install heat pumps, solar panels. We've even got solar roof tiles on one of our projects, which is quite an interesting new aspect that I had never come across before. Within the workplace, as a quantity surveyor, our goal is obviously to reduce the amount of waste that's being produced on sites. Although on the client side, it's about obviously measuring it in the bill of quantities originally and making sure that we're not allowing too much waste being sent straight to landfill. What can we do with that waste? Unfortunately, there is aspects of building that still have waste. What possibilities in site setups can we use renewable or biodegradable resources? So a lot of our sites use bark for walkways rather than stone or concrete, which gets laid and has to be taken back up and sent elsewhere or to landfill at the end of the project.
Okay, and you sort of referenced there the client side of that, and you've clearly you've got a client there who's specifying solar roof tiles rather than anything else. Do you feel that there is an opportunity, or there is an open door with clients to have the conversation about sustainability and the use of less harmful materials and different techniques and so on? Is that a regular occurrence for you?
I would say it is across most of our projects. I think all clients have taken on that on board, that they have responsibility or in a fortunate position to be able to install these different elements into their homes. Almost to a point where if our clients don't install them, will there be wider access in future for wider public access to be used, or on a smaller scale on smaller properties? However, we do struggle. We sort of work on a few refurbishment projects on listed buildings, and obviously you can't just stick solar panels onto a grade 1 listed building. So there's sort of negotiations and aspects and regulations that we have to get through to make sure that we are meeting the client's objectives, but also not affecting heritage and historic buildings.
Yeah, and you're getting into all kinds of regulatory territory there with planning authorities and all the rest of it as well. But and I suppose all of this has to be sensitive to the context of the building. And as you say, retrofit is a very different opportunity from new build. But it's great to hear the conversations are going on. So, Kian, back to you. The influence that sustainability has in decision making, your personal driver for including it is very clear from what you were talking about a few minutes ago. Is that real in the projects that you're working on through your employer?
It is real in the projects that we work on. Of course, being a consultancy firm, we are geared towards the provision of essentially environmental, agricultural, and civil consultancy services. So as a result of that, we have a direct impact on the amount of sustainability that we can implement with the clients that we receive. And of course, we do our best to implement sustainable practices in every project that we have. We try to integrate it as much as possible, of course, in the most cost-effective way as possible. And being as we are not, a multinational firm, a large firm, decision making is usually very quick and very precise. So the effective management of sustainability in our projects is something that we really, take with utmost importance.
Good, good. And your clients are generally amenable. Is sustainability a big driver for the people who are coming to you and looking to get things built?
Well, of course, the local clients, they are a bit more hesitant to
Hmm.
incur additional cost for the sustainable practices. But however, with our international clients, like we have a few projects with a few international companies like the EU, etc. And they are a lot more sustainability driven. So the increased cost would not necessarily detract from the sustainability outlook that we try to portray and we try to implement in our projects and in our services.
Interesting, the difference between the local and the international client. Yeah, particularly with the balancing that against what you were saying earlier on about the hurricanes and so on. The local clients will have aspects of this very clearly on their minds, I guess. And it's all about balancing the priorities within that.
That is it. That is it exactly.
Jake, let me come back to you. We sort of talked through how you got into your career and how sustainability plays a part in that. Looking forward, looking to the future, what do you hope to see? How do you see your career developing? In the many years you've got left ahead of you in the industry, how do you see this developing and changing over time? Or how do you want it to change over time as well?
I'd like to see the time cost quality triangle become a square, and add sustainability into that factor where it doesn't become just within quality, it's considered right from the outset. It's of course a major objective and on the minds of everybody. I'd love to see more accessibility. We're very fortunate that a lot more grants are available for heat pumps, solar panels installations. I know from sort of being sort of on the younger side of the generations, being able to afford that right now is quite difficult. And particularly I'm in rented accommodation. So would landlords be willing to put solar panels on their houses that they rent out? What is those objectives? Could they be used to charge more rent, or are they not going to obtain the different people obtain any rentals because of how expensive it might become for that initial outlay to cover their costs? But yeah, it's really important to increase that awareness, I think, and accessibility. Obviously, having experiences like Kian, who's living in it sort of day to day, where there are more frequent storms, it's important that we can all do our bit to not just locally, but make that more wide-ranging as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the local context is important. I mean, you mentioned earlier on the amount of flooding that we have in the UK these days that I'm a little bit older than you, and can just about reach back into the 70s. And I don't remember the sort of the instances of flooding that we have now on such a regular basis. So whilst I wouldn't want to stand in the way of a hurricane or a flood, they're both important considerations for homeowners, and I think your thoughts around the landlord perspective is really interesting as well here. Around at what point does the will to invest be overcome by the rental revenue opportunity and the affordability of that rent for people like young people like you. So there's balance in all of this, I guess. Do you think do you feel that the industry approach to sustainability is changing fast, even in your time in the industry? Without having to my perspective, looking back 30 years of working.
Yes, I think so, certainly. I remember when I first started, we were talking about batteries storing renewable energy, and the technology wasn't really efficient enough or worth the outlay of these original batteries, whereas now a lot of mechanical and engineering consultants are up to speed, fully recommending, and the involvement of those batteries, we're now in a position where we can store more electricity on people's projects to be used for their projects rather than getting sent straight to the grid, which is helpful in terms of making sure that there is a surplus and they get refunded for their energy they put back into the grid. But being able to use their energy themselves has been sort of a massive bonus I've seen, certainly in the 4 years. I think that awareness as well in terms of education, so having solar panels has been really insightful, but I've learned over the years that if we're not procuring these from companies that are sort of no further than Finland but predominantly in the UK, the carbon footprint that's emitted from cradle to installation, including the transport costs, especially shipping from China, you'll never get that payback for using the renewable technology than if you'd procured them in the UK. So it's just making sure that we're aware of where we're procuring the materials and having that understanding of it. It's not just, we're installing something that's sustainable. It's how far has that come from its inception to installation and further beyond when it comes to demolishing properties, to make sure that we are acting sustainability or as sustainably as possible.
I think in that one answer, you've opened up 4 other episodes for us around circular economy, supply chain, innovative materials, and so on. There's lots in there that we can unpack. And yeah, these are threads that we pick up in a lot of our episodes. Yeah, thank you for trailing in some of our other content. That's fantastic. But yeah, I mean, these are all really important considerations in it. So yeah, thank you. And Kian, from your perspective, based where you are you seeing rapid developments around sustainability in the built environment? Is it happening fast?
I would say it is a work in progress. Of course, the size and the scope of the work that we do locally, it's not, at the scale of the first world countries. However, I believe that we are doing what we can do, especially being regarded as the nature island of the Caribbean. We're doing what we can do to maintain sustainability and to push it forward as much as possible. Of course, with the innovations, new techniques, all the I can say the next generation, or the advancement in technology, like the difference in technology between what is used in the first world versus what we use. I can begin to implement that here. And I believe that is where change will be accelerated as far as sustainability.
Great. Your commission for the tourist board is secured. Just referring to it as the nature island of the Caribbean makes me want to visit. Yeah, it sounds really enticing. So it's fantastic. Okay, then just to draw us towards the close of the episode, one of the things that we worry about as a university is where the next generation is coming from and how we can make the built environment sector attractive to talented individuals such as yourselves, and how we can secure the future of a sustainable built environment sector by bringing the right talent in with the right motivations and so on. Jake, let me come to you first. What do you think the sector can do, either employers, universities, or anybody else, to make what the journey that you're on an attractive proposition, so that it doesn't rely on family connections and a family history in the construction industry or something like that? How do we reach out there and entice good talent in?
Thank you for saying that we're very talented young professionals. But yeah, I think the most important thing is right from that outset at school level is we are seen as the built environment as not as good a profession or sector as maybe other sectors. It's not really, when you go to career meetings with a career advisor, it's not necessarily something that's ever brought up as, you could be a quantity surveyor. I didn't particularly know exactly what a quantity surveyor did before I started my apprenticeship. And I don't think that knowledge is really out there, that of the wide range of different careers there are within the built environment. It's not just an on-site operative. There's a big team that goes behind it of architects, engineers, quantity surveyors, project managers, specialists. And I don't think without that initial awareness being brought about, maybe through greater access from unis to get that outreach out there, but a lot of apprenticeships aren't widely known in terms of advertised at schools or to get out there in terms of adopting an apprenticeship, different from going directly to university. And I think that's been really important to have both aspects of attending university, learning by the books, having that experience from module leaders, but also having the day-to-day role, going on site, seeing firsthand what is happening on site and how that has evolved has been really insightful too. So a good balance of both has been really impactful for me.
Interesting, and I think you're right. I think the outreach piece to careers officers will work on the information that's available to them unless they happen to have worked in the industry. Then we have to get that information out there. We have to make it clear what the opportunities are, what the benefits are. I think a message somewhere along the lines of the best way to address sustainability is to start with the industry that has the greatest impact, current negative impact. That there's an opportunity there that we can do something about. So and Kian, what about for you? How do we get out there and how do we promote the opportunity to young people?
I would say continue to educate the public as much as possible, as far as through government meetings, press conferences, you have professional meetings, outreach programs, stuff like that that would engage the public. I believe there's a lack of knowledge with the general public, because before I started in this current career, I was almost oblivious to sustainability. Of course, there would be minor snippets of it, very minor. However, I needed to get involved in the sector so that I could, actually see the importance of it. And of course, with my experience with the hurricanes and stuff, yeah, that is something that I believe would interest people who have a direct relationship or directly affected by unsustainable practices. I believe they would, of course, would I would like to extend the grace to them that they would want to make the world a better place. But I believe that as long as we can get the message out there, that they will be interested. I believe everyone has a story and about unsustainable practices, and with that story, they can charter enough interest in making a change in the world. And of course, additionally to that, I would like to just touch on, the advancements in technology, because artificial intelligence, building information modeling, augmented reality, these are, I believe people would say, like separate fields from the built environment. However, integrating them would obviously, attract people from the different sectors who are only interested in those particular technologies, in which we could bring in sustainability and further educate the public on a much wider scale.
Well said. Absolutely, 100%. Okay, then we're close to the end of our time for this episode. So, Jake, I'll come to you first. You very kindly answered all of my questions around this. Is there anything that you sort of wanted to say or to add to this conversation from your perspective?
I think Kian's point was absolutely right, getting the public message out there as much as possible. I think it's important that we need to make sure that we're getting that across meaningfully and truthfully. The last few COP meetings where we've got global involvement hasn't maybe been as successful as we'd hoped, and in Brazil this year, COP is being held within the Amazon rainforest, which they're saying we're bringing these environmental considerations to the birthplace of the environment. And unfortunately, a large proportion of the rainforest has been deforested to make way for access for all the transportation to these events. And it's that sort of balance between getting that wider access, but how much environmental impact are we doing it by bringing it to the Amazon rainforest too?
There's another episode right there, and one that I'd love to debate at great length, because I think you're 100% right that around that perspective. I think really, really important. Thank you. Kian, over to you. You have the opportunity to have the last word of the episode. Is there anything you wanted anything else you wanted to bring?
I would like to, urge the wider government institutions, the built environment professionals, and those that are in higher authority as far as influence in the built environment to, well, of course, I'm not privy to the discussions that occur at the heads of meetings. However, I would love if they have a plan or an effective way of mitigating global issues that would affect sustainability, on a global scale. For example, the COVID-19 pandemic. It would be very beneficial if, a very precise plan was drawn up and executed in the unfortunate event that, something similar happens in the future. And of course, I know that the SDG, the UN Sustainability Development Goals, they have been in the works, and I believe my last read through of it, we were kind of slacking. We were lagging behind a little bit. However, I still believe that, significant progress can be made. So that's something that I would love to see. I would love to see, a very documented or detailed plan of execution in preparation for something similar.
Great. Here. Thank you very much. All's left for me to do is to thank you both so much for joining us in this episode. It's been a fantastic episode, a great opportunity to get your perspectives as young practitioners, as students, as advocates for change, for sustainability. Really important, I think, to hear your perspectives, and really, really valuable. So with that, thank you so much for joining us today. That's the end of the episode. If you have enjoyed listening to that episode today, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have, then there are other episodes available. And please do subscribe through all of the usual channels, Spotify, YouTube, and so on. But that is the end of this episode of the Be Sustainable podcast from UCM. Thank you.